Soap making is a much more accessible, old-timey skill than you might think. Invest time and effort to get a lovely soap that cleans well and makes a wonderful gift. I'm RC McDonald with Pacific Northwest Suburban Homesteading. Today, a remote homestead accomplished, Shauna Zimmerman, will show this straightforward process.
Fats, oils, drain cleaner. Let's have a little fun and make a project that cleans up after itself. Nobody really knows how or when it was invented, but soap has had a profound effect on the development of human history by bringing us cleanliness and sanitation. Surprisingly, for such an important development, it's really simple to make. It involves some sort of fat, which could be olive oil, coconut oil, freshly rendered tallow, and an alkaline, best known as lye, or sodium hydroxide, or caustic soda, whatever you want to call it. These will come together in a process called saponification, which brings the pH from alkaline lye to a very neutral and skin-healthy product. Let's give it a try. A lot of soap recipes that you'll find have combinations of different oils and different fats for the different properties that they have on cleaning, on lather, or even the hardness of the bar. A lot of them will have a mixture with olive oil, coconut oil, jojoba oil, cocoa butter. But today, I'm going to make a single oil soap just for simplicity's sake of demonstration. The first thing you're going to need is 516 grams of tallow. You're going to need 67 grams of sodium hydroxide, or pure lye, and 196 grams of distilled water. Your equipment is very basic, and you're going to find it in just about anybody's kitchen. Glass bowls. You're going to need a large one for the soap making, and a smaller one for measuring your lye and water out. You're going to need a scale, one that reads in grams, a plastic or glass stirring utensil, and a paper cup to measure out your lye, an immersion blender. Now, I know I will say along the line, don't use metal. This is metal, but it's only going to be used for about a minute or two before we rinse it off, so we're not going to have any major chemical reactions between the metal and the lye. You're also going to need some sort of form of mold for your soap. These are actually silicone muffin pans that are shaped like flowers. They work great. This is a loaf mold where you would pour all of the soap in here, let it set up, and then you would cut it into bars. The unfortunate thing about this is the silicone liner is very floppy, so when you put your soap in it, it's going to flop out. That is what this was supposed to do. It was supposed to keep it from flopping, keep it firm, keep your bars nice and even. But guess what? It flops too. So I very quickly made this in my wood shop with some scrap wood to the size of the liner. That's not going anywhere. Once you've gotten comfortable with making soap, then you can start playing with it and adding fragrances. With fragrance oils, you can add crushed dried herbs, powdered oatmeal. You can color it with mica powder or special soap colorings. I'm going to tell you right now, do not use food coloring unless you want to dye yourself blue. So for this step, we're going to measure out the lye, or sodium hydroxide, caustic soda, whatever you want to call it. Originally, lye was extracted from wood ashes, which made it a little uncertain as to the potency every time. So you're going to be purchasing 100% lye from the store. Do not buy a drain cleaner that is not 100% lye. A lot of them have other crystals of other minerals. You want pure 100% crystal powdered lye.
Pure lye is readily available online if it is difficult to purchase locally.
As it so clearly says on this label. I'm sorry, the label fell off of this, and it is very important to always keep your chemicals labeled, so it's a DIY job. Fortunately, there are no small children or pets that can get into it, so this is good enough.
If this happens to you, free printable warning labels are available online if you want something fancier than Shauna needed. This is one example. Also, here's safety information about Lye. I've included links to both in the description.
As you can see, I'm wearing eye protection. This is in a powdered form, meaning it's not putting off any volatile fumes or splashes yet. I just don't want to get any of the crystals in my eye, but if I was to get the powder on my skin, it's not going to burn me and I can easily wash it off. My soap recipe, it calls for 67 grams of lye. Yes, I'm measuring everything in grams and not ounces. Much more accurate. $67 grams. It's actually not that much. It only comes up to about here. We also need 196 grams of distilled water. You want clean, distilled, fresh water. Don't use tap water that may have hard minerals or chlorine in it. Using fresh distilled water. So fresh and clean, you don't need safety gear for this. And we need 196 grams, meaning measure it by weight, not by volume. We're going to take this outside now. You're going to mix the lye into the water. You're not going to put the water into the lye. You could get a volcanic eruption if you do it that way, but even as we put the powdered lye into the water, it's going to heat up very quickly and put up very volatile fumes. Don't let yourself be intimidated handling lye or other caustic chemicals. You just need to use the proper safety gear. Okay, maybe not quite that much. Okay, so realistically, all the safety gear that you're going to need for this is some eye protection to make sure you don't get any splashes, some sort of breathing protection so you don't inhale the fumes, whether it's a N95 mask or even just a bandana to wrap over your face, or even holding up your shirt. Make sure that you're downwind if there's any sort of breeze. And I can't reiterate this enough. You want glass or plastic bowl and utensils to work. Do not use metal. Lye reacts badly with the metal. Do not use wood. Lye will eat the wood. So I'm going to go ahead and put on my gloves just because I don't want to get any of this on my hands. But if I do, first of all, we have to put the gloves on the right hands. But if I do get a splash on me, we have a water source close by to rinse it off real quickly, and we have some acid to neutralize the base close by. In this case, it's just vinegar. Have all of those on standby, but if you're really careful, this shouldn't even be a problem. I don't want to scare you, I just want you to be cautious. And again, you're putting the lye into the water. Stir carefully. It does kind of crispy up on the bottom a little bit, so you do need to scrape it, but not so hard that you cause a tidal wave and splash yourself. There. Now, for some reason, we've attracted hornets. Don't know why. This needs to go in the garbage. What's happening here, it's kind of clabbered up a little bit. It's a little cloudy, but it's not chunky or anything. But it is hot right now. It heats up on its own. There's a chemical reaction going on between the water and the lye. I can feel the heat through this glass bowl and through my gloves. Meaning, we're going to let this sit for a while, let the chemical reaction finish, and let it cool down naturally on its own to about 120 degrees. So now we're going to want to melt our tallow and bring it up to temperature. Whether you're using a room solid fat like tallow or coconut oil, or if you're using a liquid like olive oil, you want to bring it to about 120 degrees. You can, if you want to, use a crock pot, put it in there and bring it up slowly. A quicker, more efficient way is to melt this in 30-second bursts in the microwave. So I'm gonna go do that now. Still solid after 30 seconds. Break it up a little bit and back in for another 30 seconds. Still a little creamy and a little chunky, but maybe another 30 seconds to a minute and it will be the right temperature. Still got a few little chunks, but it's almost there. It's feeling pretty warm. Remember, we're going for about 120 degrees. Let's see what we've got. That's just about perfect. Ooh, nice and warm. Feels nice and warm like hot water, but not boiling. That's perfect. We're about ready to go. So if you've ever heard that soap making is difficult or dangerous, forget all that. This is going to be so easy. You're going to want to have your molds ready to go because once the soap is ready, sometimes it can set up pretty quickly, so you have to move kind of fast. I'm going to pour 1 or 2 individual molds and then the rest in this loaf mold. If you are going to put fragrance oils or add-ins like rosemary or oatmeal, have those on standby too. I'm not going to be using them this time. I'm making a very pure, clean, simple soap. I have friends that have sensitivities to strong scents, and so I'm making an unscented bar for them. Stand by on the mixer and do put on some eye protection just so you don't get splashed. What we're going for is a state of this mixture called trace. And it's kind of a nebulous state, but it's like a very thin pudding or pancake batter consistency that maybe it mounds up a little bit when you drip it, or it leaves a very thick coating on your blender. When you have reached trace, your soap is ready to go. Be prepared for how easy this is. Our lye has cooled down to about 120 degrees. Our fats are about 120 degrees. Pour the lye into the fat, and just for safety's sake, pour it away from you. I'm just going to give it a quick stir to incorporate everything. This is a silicone spatula. No worries about reactions with the lye. Not a spatula, rubber scraper. But I am going to rinse it off. Immersion blender on low. You're going to be blending it for about 3 minutes. Your alternative would be to be stirring it with a spoon. That could take up to 20 minutes. Trust me. So after about 30 seconds of blending, we have a state of emulsion. The ingredients are combined thoroughly together and it looks a little thick and cloudy and creamy, but this is not trace yet. It's just dripping right off. It's still very liquidy. So let's keep blending. Still fairly liquid, but it's a little thicker than it was before. And just for clarification's sake, if you have multiple speeds on your immersion blender, use the low speed. I'm going to give the blender a quick break and point out that this is what's called cold processed soap, meaning we're not cooking anything. Yes, we warmed up the fat enough to melt it, but we're not actually cooking. There is hot processed soap, A little more complicated, but it's still the same general principle. So once you get comfortable making the simple soap, please experiment, and there are plenty of recipes out there. Search on the internet. There's many books that you can find. It's a lot of fun, makes great gifts. Starting to cling a little more to the blender. A little thicker. Still a little ways to go. It's feeling a lot like liquid soap now. I don't recommend this, but a long time ago, soap makers would do this to test if their soap was about ready. Nope. I got an electrical zap out of that. There. So now it's looking like thin butter. This is a stage called light trace. Not quite there yet, but if you were using essential oils or herbs or any sort of mix in, this is the time that you would add those. It's still a little thin. It's definitely in the later stages of light trace, but I think this is ready to put in a mold. First thing we're going to do is rinse off our metal parts of our immersion blender just to make sure that there's no lye reacting with the metal. It's only beginning the saponification process, but I'm already getting a bit of lather out of it. So that tells me it's ready to go. At this point, you really don't need the safety glasses anymore. So I'm just going to, like I said, pour 1 or 2 of these little muffin pan silicone molds, and then the rest will go in my loaf mold. You do want to work fairly quickly. This soap, for one thing, is very slippery, but it doesn't set up as fast as some soaps, and it doesn't set up as slowly as other soaps. I've made coconut oil soap that set up in about 5 minutes, and I didn't even get all my molds poured. I've done pure 100% olive oil soap, which is otherwise known as Castile soap, 2 weeks before it's set up. At this point, we wait. It needs 24 to 48 hours for this kind of soap to set up enough to unmold it, but it really needs to sit for about 30 days for the full saponification process to occur. When I unmold the loaf, I will cut it. Sometimes I use a knife, but actually I find it works better to use a piece of wire or fishing line to cut through it. Then you just spread them apart, let them air dry for 30 days, and you have soap. See how simple that was? Try it. Okay, so my tallow soap has had about 24 hours to set up. It has not reached full saponification just yet. The lye needs more time to convert the fats into soap, but it is set up and ready to unmold at this point. This is why I love silicone molds so much. This is just gonna pop right out of there. Look at that. Beautiful little soaps. Very decorative and perfect for gift giving. And then we have the loaf that I made. I'm gonna pull the silicone liner out of the hard frame. We have a loaf of soap. At this point, you can cut it with a knife, although I have sometimes had trouble with the knife going in odd directions. So I made a little soap cutter out of a broken chair. These are actually chair rails for my handle, and you may not be able to see it, but there is fishing line in between these. Super simple. You just decide the size of the bar that you want. Since this is not too tall, I'm going to make them a little thicker. Just place your fishing line about where you want it to be. Cross them carefully and pull. You can also just do the traditional dental floss style of cutting. I prefer to have the handles just because the dental floss style of cutting cuts into your fingers as much as it does the soap. Put these out on a rack or a towel somewhere moderately warm, room temperature, mostly draft free, and let them sit for the next few weeks to finish the saponification process. So don't be intimidated. Give it a try. Soap making is actually very easy. It's fun, it's creative, it's a great way to use up fats and oils that you might otherwise be throwing away. And more importantly, unlike a lot of commercial soaps, you know exactly what's in this. You know that there aren't any unwarranted chemicals or perfumes or dyes that you just don't want on your skin. And I have to say again, thank you, Grandma, for teaching me how to do this.
Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe. Until next time, be curious, keep an open mind, and never stop learning.